Hi, my name is Zach Katkin. I'm the CEO and founder of Olympia Marketing. We are a digital first focused ad agency in Southwest Florida, based in Estero. And I come to you today to present to you some things on search engine marketing, right? That sounds boring. Basically, I'm here to help you grow your business, right? And I don't care if you don't talk to me, although I'll give you my contact information at the end. This video will be really, really, really helpful for any small business in Southwest Florida, right? As we'll get into, and I'll get into the weeds on some of this, I think it's more important than ever for local small businesses, no matter where, but especially here in Southwest Florida. I've been here for almost 30 years, basically third generation. My grandparents came here in the 60s, parents came here in the 90s, and I love this area. I want to continue to protect it. I want small businesses to grow, and a lot's changed, especially since COVID. So we'll talk about that. But what we're going to concentrate on for this first episode, we're going to do one of these every month for Southwest Florida Inc., which I really appreciate them allowing me to do this, for partnering with us on this. We're going to talk about SEM, search engine marketing, specifically AdWords. Um, One of the most powerful tools that's out there. It's a tool I've been using for over 20 years. Literally, I started using it in 2002, maybe it was 2003, so it's been 22 years. And to this day, it continues to be one of the most important tools in marketing. I think more so now than ever, and more so today, um, in that a lot of people have kind of been duped into believing that social media is the way to market their business. And generally speaking, there are some exceptions to this, but it is not. So I'm going to tell you about all these things. Not here to sell you anything, just here to communicate how AdWords works. The only thing I want to sell you on is SEM in general and ways to help your business. So let's get started. All right. So, what are we going to cover? A little bit about me and Olympia, why AdWords still matters a lot in 2025. What is AdWords? How Google handles websites and, specific to AdWords, our strategy, a little bit about our services, and then my contact information essentially at the end. So a little bit about me. As I said, I've been in town working over 20 years, FGCU graduate, started my former ad agency while at FGCU, sold that, did some odds and ends, was basically the chief marketing officer for a number of local businesses, especially in the real estate industry, and decided 2 years ago that basically, small business marketing, medium-sized business marketing, local marketing is what I really love to do. Right? I love helping small businesses achieve their dreams, achieve their goals. It has a huge impact on the local community and the economy. If you do well, you get to employ more people, and then that has a cascading effect across everything. So I really think, as my mom used to say, charity begins at home. So one of the coolest projects I ever worked on, just to talk a little bit about my accolades, I've worked on a number of national size projects underneath my companies, but locally at least, it's one of the most notable things that basically everybody here knows, Babcock Ranch. So if you look at any of Babcock Ranch's marketing, um, me and my team put that together. God, that would have been about starting in around 2013, 2014, worked with the whole Babcock team throughout the whole, you know, groundbreaking and then actual launch and then post launch. And still to this day, for the most part, everything you see, me and my team had put together. So, um, yeah, we're working on a lot of stuff. So we help a lot of home service businesses. We've created various packages to make things as effective and affordable and easy as possible. I'm not going to dive into that because, I'm sure you don't want to hear it. But we really, help businesses of all sizes, of all kinds, do really well, rank nationally, and basically how I positioned our company is, even though we are digital first focused, generally the reason for that is because the returns on digital are often many times more than other things. Southwest Florida has kind of been slow to the game in that. I'd say really the last 5 years, really with COVID, changed that. But it's implementing, whether it's a product kind of planned out, package based, uh, service, or something totally custom, stuff that works, right? I think that It's my philosophy with my company that if you hire us, if anybody works with us, we should be providing anywhere from about 5 to 20 times return with any spend, right? So anything between my own fees and then fees for actual marketing, advertising, or deployment, you should be seeing a massive return. If we're not doing that, we shouldn't exist. So, all right. So why AdWords still matters? We're going to go over a little bit about traffic, a little bit about business, how people make purchasing decisions, and then why social media sucks, right? And I'm gonna explain a little story about that. But so today, 16 billion searches are done on Google, right? 16 billion. It's unbelievable. Southwest Florida has over 1.5 million people. In fact, the census data lags a lot behind reality. And based on something I just saw literally this morning, Google is saying that Fort Myers, in particular, the city of Fort Myers and somewhat of the surrounding areas that, if you're a native, you wouldn't necessarily consider Fort Myers, stuff like South Fort Myers, like St. Carlos, Gateway, etc. But it actually is 1.8 million. So this is a little bit dated. I just made these, about a week ago, this slide. So approximately 300 million searches per month are done in all of Southwest Florida, right? And I'm gonna explain, use an analogy to explain some of this. More than 80% of all purchase decisions, products, services, etc., on a local level involve Google search at some point, right? So, here, come here. You make me look crazy. Sit. Boy, see my dog. Um, so let me reiterate that. Obviously, got distracted. 80% of all purchase decisions, all local business purchase decisions, running to Home Depot, thinking about going to a restaurant, looking for entertainment, trying to find, as I just was, a service provider for shower glass, are done through Google, right? A tremendous amount of business is done through Google. I mean, just today, I probably personally did 5 to 10 searches that are going to lead to some sort of purchasing decision. So search is the primary driver of actual direct business and revenue, especially in the United States. The total numbers are 1.5 trillion annually in just the US. Yellow Pages, billboards, magazines, etc. has completely shifted online to search. And social media pales in comparison. There's virtually, it's I've explained it for literally decades at this point, where you have what I call distraction marketing, things like magazines, billboards, etc., which we're definitely going to get into billboards here in a second, where you're doing something else. You're driving, you're reading a magazine, you're on Facebook, right? And an ad appears, and ideally, and this has been done for decades and God, even generations now. People try to come up with, businesses and advertisers try to come up with psychographics of the reading population. So, or the people that drive, or the people, the people that are consuming the thing, right? Which is, all right, they're this age group, they have this, income, they have this family size, etc. But it's really difficult. And generally speaking, especially with something like social media, you're there to do a specific thing. Waste time, catch up with friends or family, view pictures of some kind or videos. You're not there to consume an advertisement, right? So the ad has to be like super, super compelling, enticing. It has to be kind of shoved in your face. And even then, it just doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. Google, on the other hand, invented something 20 plus years ago that was the most amazing thing in the world, which is they created advertisements for any word or set of words that will, have ever and will ever exist, that allow your business to jump in front of somebody that's looking for exactly what you have when they're looking, right? So as an example, I've been working on shower issue. I had an issue with my shower. Shower was leaking a little bit. Long story short, redid my shower, but now I need shower glass, right? So I go to Google, do a search. and see who is closest to me, get a few numbers, etc. So those people that are coming up either through advertising or through other methods like search engine optimization are the ones that are going to get my business, right? And in fact, other than maybe one company I can think of, I don't think I've ever really seen a company that would provide shower glass. I wouldn't know how to find that or where to look other than in the old days through Yellow Pages, right? So it's super, super, super important that you come up for these things. All right. So why AdWords still matters for businesses here in Southwest Florida. Message is clear: if you're not being found online, you don't exist. So this happened. I mean, the previous story I just gave was one example, but there was another person I was talking to, potentially working with, and people just I think they don't realize the extent to which they rely on their phones. Especially, I would say anybody over the age of like 35. They still think in some ways in the old way, even though their behavior is completely the new way, right? What younger generations are already doing, which is that quite literally, if you're not on your phone, if your business isn't showing up on the phone, wherever those people are, be it Google and other places, you don't exist. You can literally drive by businesses all day, every day, and not pay attention to those things as much as you pay attention to things on your phone, right? So if you're not there, you don't exist. Additionally, social media, while a strong strategy for specific kinds of businesses, just doesn't work for most businesses, right? Um, an example of this was I have a client and they're an outdoor storage facility. They're not local, and they actually bought the storage facility as an investment bet. And it was a great idea. It's been very successful and good. But when I first started helping them with the marketing, and the 100% of the marketing has literally been outdoor storage, like coming up for these things on Google, outdoor storage, truck storage, equipment storage, RV storage, motorhome storage, these kinds, boat storage, these kinds of things. Like it has driven 100% of their business for the last 3.5 years at this point. But when I first started working with them, they had not yet purchased the space, and the owner of the investment company that ended up investing in this space and then placing a CEO, he looked at me in a big meeting, a bunch of people at a round table, and said, "Zach, we need Twitter. We need a Twitter account for I feel like Obama. We need a Twitter account for this outdoor storage facility, folks." Right? And I remember asking him, like, okay, but what would we post? I thought it was a horrible idea. It didn't make any sense. And then I made a joke of, like, what are we gonna do every day? Like, take a picture of a new space, one of the new, you know, literal dirt lots that they have, and come up with something like nobody cares. Nobody's gonna care about that, right? The clear bet in that case, as it is in most cases in business, even in cases you might not think, which we'll get to another story about that in a second, is just figure out how to get in front of those searchers, right? And the way is twofold. It's AdWords, as we're going to talk about, or SEO, search engine optimization. Kind of combine those two together, and they're called search engine marketing, right? So I've seen businesses adopt the strategies we'll be going over here in this series, like the subsequent series, and see anywhere from 10 to 100x results they saw from social media, often while spending less money. So another story I have on the social media side of things. So we do a lot of work in the beauty industry. In fact, not this week, but last week, we got a number of really cool press mentions nationwide. And so we've helped a lot of beauty schools attract clients, right? And again, the number one way that happens is exactly what we're talking about, exactly what we're going to go over, which is AdWords and SEO, not rocket science. But I had a friend who I helped her start her beauty business. It was literally a local beauty school, and she was spending a ton of time, money, energy on social media, right? Social media involves taking pictures, coming up with something clever, posting, ongoing. If it's video, there's editing. It's a big time sink for anybody that does it. And this very popular woman locally, lots of friends online on social media. and she saw a bit of an upswing, especially in the beginning. And I believe she maybe received 20 or 30 students from that, which is fantastic. That alone did start her whole business, which is great. But then, okay, now she's invested in a space, she's decorated, she has equipment, she has software, she has all these things she has to maintain. And time's coming up where she's going to have to register new students, get them on board, and have this be a sustainable business. And she's spending, she did her own website, she did everything on her own, spending tons of time. I would estimate probably between her website and social media, probably $20,000 worth of her own time and money on trying to execute these things herself. What do we do? Come along, update her website, take care of that, implement AdWords, and now month to month, every single month, she has more students than she can handle. In fact, within the first, I think it was 6 months, we had the full next 18 months worth of students in a queue, a waiting list, to show you, the difference. She was literally getting maybe one person per week through all these activities on social media. And this is a heavily skewed social media friendly business, right? You'd think younger women looking for careers in beauty, looking for schools, social media would be a big part of their lives, is a big part of their lives. And yet in this case, it just wasn't leading to results. And why is that the case? This is part of the reason we got the press mentions. Well, it's because they'll do research or they'll get hooked on a particular career. But when they're actually serious about pursuing that career, finding the schools near them, they turn to search every time. They don't turn to social media whatsoever. It's kind of like the social media helps craft the idea in their minds that maybe this is something I would do. And then 6 months or a year later, they're deciding, okay, it's August. I'm all graduated from wherever. It's time to start thinking about next direction for me. So I'm going to turn to Google, see who is around me, who's well reviewed, who looks nice, etc. So in that case, quite literally, it was over 100x results that we saw with this particular client. Another thing I wanted to mention is the playing field is changing fast, and this has to do primarily with COVID, the nature of money, all kinds of stuff. I'm actually writing a blog post about this. It's a long one. It's multi-part series. Just stuff that I find interesting as a hobby, which is, kind of like macroeconomic, macro political, international politics stuff. How does that come home, within, what are the effects within, the United States, Florida, Southwest Florida, etc. So, number one, private equity. So this has been going on very rapidly, especially since COVID, which is private equity is coming into businesses and scooping them up. There's kind of two facets to this. I won't get into too much detail, but the biggest one that I think most businesses need to be concerned about and understand is that private equity plays rough, right? These aren't local mom and pop businesses where you've got a competitor across the street and, there's a healthy competition. They come in, and regardless of how they feel about things, everything's dictated by bottom line, and they push marketing like crazy, right? So, and this is something that, I've had to educate a lot of businesses that I've worked with on. They essentially immediately build in the largest moat they can into their business from a marketing perspective, which means, excuse me, let's take the storage facility as an example. If you're a storage facility and if you're very well organized, optimized, like a private equity invested storage facility would be and is, somebody would have done the math and the processes, the business and administrative processes, to understand that they go into that business where somebody, a potential lead comes into that business. What's the percent, the normal percent of the time that the business actually closes, right? So if they get two people in and one person signs up, that's a 50% close rate, right? And then what is the percent of the LTV, the lifetime value of that particular customer, right? And then from that, operating expenses, et cetera, they know that they have, an overall profit of, let's say, for an outdoor storage or just a general storage facility, let's say it's an average of $200 a month, and they stay for 18 months. So that's $3,600, and they have a net profit of 30%. So what's that? 360 times 3. 900, 1080, right? So 1,000 bucks, right? So they know immediately. Now, 1,080 is also, you got to remember with the 50%. I don't mean to get off in the weeds on the numbers here, but they know immediately that they could probably spend up to. I mean, that's net. So maybe they could spend up to 50%, right? They can spend up to $500 per customer. I mean, at 50%, that'd be a little bit rough. Probably closer to 200 and 250, right? You talk to a small business about something like that, and they think you're nuts, right? Because they haven't done all the work to optimize themselves and understand where their numbers are at, how to improve their numbers and things like this. But the problem is that if you're only willing to pay $10 for a lead, it becomes very, very difficult if your major competitor is willing to pay 200 or 20 times that, because they know they will make money all day long every day, right? So it's a brutal game, right? Especially online. Um, Entities are coming in, private equity firms, national firms are buying companies and doing this all day long. Especially with home service companies, with managed service providers like IT companies. So it's really important you understand and like optimize your business. Another business category I've seen this done a lot in is HVAC. Speaking of home services, where a lot of HVAC companies are run pretty haphazardly, unfortunately. On the ground, the actual businesses are um, not well organized. Um, you know, and I understand there's a lot of moving pieces, a lot of issues right now with finding talent, but on a national average, a lead for the HVAC industry is anywhere from $250 to $500 per lead. And a lot of times for local businesses, they don't understand local HVAC businesses. How is this possible? Well, it's because the bigger firms that have bought up and are guiding the, formerly mom and pop HVAC companies, guiding them to, okay, how do we make a return when our cost per lead is more than our general first service, right? So let's say a service is normally $89 or something like that, or even free. And it's a complete loss leader to get a lead in at 250 to 500. Well, what do? They have their reps, the person that comes out to evaluate things, have sales quotas and have packages for things like a yearly maintenance, where quarterly or monthly they come in, they check the system, they replace your what are they called, filters, and so they make it work for them, right? And then they look at the grander numbers to see that, okay, if we get 20 leads in within the first year, two of those people, because we have such a coordinated process in the background, um, because like let's say, they sign up a certain percent of those people for those packages, and then they're coming to the house over and over, they're building a relationship, they're drip marketing to them through things like email or text messages. They know that on average, I don't know, 20% of those, this is a made up number, but 20% of those people buy whole new systems, and it is with that company. So if they can bank on selling anywhere between a $10,000 and $20,000 system, they'll pay for 20 leads at, upwards of $500 or $10,000 total all day long, because they know that a certain percent of those people that will wash out when you look at all the numbers at the end of the year are going to purchase a whole system. So you have to, in my opinion, you have to really start getting serious about your business. This is one of the biggest things, the biggest problems that I see. There legitimately has never been a client or company that I've worked with where I haven't been able to help them, except for the fact that really they couldn't handle the scaling of their business or adopting models internally that allow them to actually compete with the way things are. So, as an example of this, um, just happen to be doing a lot of research in this industry right now. Um, Accounting and bookkeeping is like this, where per lead it's anywhere from, depends on some little details, but anywhere from about $750 to $1,200 per lead. That's expensive. That means you need quite a high-end client to close that. So, or to make that worthwhile or within your business margin. So I wanted to give an example here of what I'm talking about. Actually, you know what? I'm going to jump ahead, right? So this is an analogy I like to use. I've been testing this out. Pretty proud of it. I've never seen it before, which is um, everybody understands you drive along a street, a road. Let's say you're driving along Corkscrew or you're driving along 41 in Estero. You see the Pavages. You see Joe Pavage Jr., everywhere, right? And everybody understands why they're doing that, right? Why are they doing that? Because it's heavily trafficked and they're trying to serve Estero. They're trying to build their brand in Estero, right? It makes total sense. And then similarly, you'll see, buildings, strip malls, malls. You'll see the placards, right? Again, why are things built in certain areas? Oh, because they're heavily trafficked. They're centrally located to major communities, whatever the case may be. And it makes sense. It intuitively makes sense to people because people are around. People understand they're driving along a road, and there's a lot of people driving along the road with them. People understand they're driving inside of town in Estero or St. Carlos or Fort Myers or, what have you. And there's a lot of people all around, right? SEM, search engine marketing, works the exact same way, except what most businesses and people don't understand is that the car they're driving in is completely enclosed. You cannot see by default the people around you. You can't see how busy things are. But there are tools to help you see that. And this is one of the tools that I use. It's called the Google AdWords keyword tool, which you can just do a search for all kinds of things. So an example of this is, this is a screenshot from that tool. What we have is HVAC, air conditioning company, etc., in the Fort Myers region for all of this year, right? September 24th, 2024 through August 2025. And if we look at this, these numbers are astounding. I don't have yeah, okay, there we go. All right, so on the top end, we have almost 120,000 people per month. Blue is the total, red is the mobile, excuse me. And you can see our region's a little bit different. We get about 50 to 60% depending on the month. Ironically, when it's highest in season, the snowbirds are probably skewed much older, so a lot of them are using their desktops here. But so point being is that literally $120,000 a month at the peak in March, at the end of season, towards the end of season, are searching for HVAC repair, HVAC techs, companies, etc. They're probably want their system to be looked at, make sure it's okay, or maybe it hadn't been running. They turned it on during season and there were problems, whatever the case may be. In our area, the fluctuation boom is gigantic in March. 120,000 people per month are searching for HVAC, right? That's this road, right? All these people are driving along the road of HVAC in Southwest Florida. So the best way to think of what I'm talking about is SEO. So when you make your website look good and come up number one for like Naples HVAC company or Bonita HVAC company, that's like building a commercial building. It's there. It's semi-permanent. People trust it. Pay-per-click, on the other hand, really mostly what we're talking about, where AdWords is like putting up a billboard, right? Just like the Pavages have a billboard in the physical location of Estero because they're trying to go after people in Estero and brand themselves to Estero. They could similarly, I don't know if they do or not, but pay for ads on Estero Realtor, Estero Real Estate, et cetera, et cetera. So these are the two ways to think about this. The roads are super heavily trafficked, probably more than people could even imagine. Again, Lee and Collier County, in total, what do we have? Probably close to 3 million people, maybe 2.5 million people in total. And 120,000 people in our highest month are searching for HVAC issues because they have HVAC problems. And then, the final conclusion, and we're going to go over what the ads look like, but if they're searching for HVAC problems and your ad comes up, "We solve HVAC problems," it's literally the most effective advertising known to man, right? Nothing is more effective. So what is AdWords specifically? Like literally, I'm sure you've seen them. You do a search for anything, and at the top you'll see ad and actual, advertisement. It looks very similar to the search ad. So this is exactly what we're talking about. Over the years, Google's gotten more sophisticated with their ad types. So nowadays, there's something called Performance Max campaigns, which will show your ad on YouTube. It'll show it on search. It'll show your Google Business Profile listing on things like local search or the map. It'll show as a display ad within content. So, like if somebody has done a search for what you're trying to go after, let's say HVAC issues, they did HVAC issues as a search, and you're an HVAC company. If they're on another website that has display advertising, your ad will appear because Google is like, oh yeah, that person is looking for that thing. Let's make sure they continually see your ad. Even within Gmail, they show advertisements. Here's an example of an advertisement within Google Maps. Little bit of a dated picture. And then nowadays they even have something called local service ads. So this is a whole nother form of advertising. I'm not going to talk much about this. Obviously, it's already been over half an hour. It's been time moves quickly. Um, but it's a special kind of advertisement for certain types of professionals, whereby Google certifies your professional status through things like your insurance or licensing numbers, and then provides leads directly to you, and you only pay for the actual lead. There's no more um, paying per click or anything like that. And it's usually um, it's a great tool as well. Usually, I tend to like to start with conventional AdWords and then move on to something like this because it's going to be just more expensive, and you really have to be on the ball with answering phone calls or emails as a business. So what's our strategy? It's pretty simple. It's 5 steps. We start with an audit, figure out, a little bit about your company. We've hit so many industries at this point. Usually we can speak very intelligently to various industries. As an example, like an HVAC company, because I know so much about the marketing side of things and then also the business side of things and what's going on with like private equity firms. I don't recommend any business, like an HVAC company, start to do any sort of digital marketing until they have about a $10,000 a month minimum budget, right? And that's at a sustained budget over the course of a year. That would be 12 months or $120,000 minimum. Um, and there's a couple other industries that are similar to that. It's just gotten so competitive, and on a kind of a nationwide or private equity scale. So, but we start understanding you. What are you trying to accomplish? What are you doing? What does your audience literally look like through tools that I showed you a minute ago? That's the keyword research part of that. Then obviously we actually deploy the ads. We do some things on your site to make sure conversion tracking and things like that are set up. And then we monitor and optimize. So we're talking to clients all the time. Literally, we launched a campaign this week, so Monday, for one client. Have had multiple communications for that with them over the last over the last week. Have another campaign and full AdWords campaign, not just a single campaign, but a full campaign for their whole business. They have about 30 different kind of services and products. We launching that on Monday for a different client, and we just communicate with them. Like I said, one of the biggest problems we tend to have, interestingly enough, is too much too fast, right? We can really drive business and scale business very quickly. Um, and that's the cool thing about AdWords is, you know, it depends on the business type. HVAC's a bit of an exception here, but you can dial it up or down kind of like a volume or a faucet, you know, nozzle. Like we can see how big generally um, ahead of time the market is, and then vary completely within the first month. But we can see, okay, that roadway is 15 lanes deep constantly, tons of people, right? We could say, okay, we're only going to target a certain percent of that. You don't need to spend and get in front of 100% of people. But even that, again, I'll reiterate, the biggest thing that we see is businesses having the underlying business model and administrative competency, I'd say, behind them to accommodate that kind of growth. So that's really, really important. Couple last things I wanted to say. So a little bit of SEO versus paid ads. SEO, again, that's like if you're going back to the roadway analogy, that's like building the commercial building. You have a lower cost generally over time overall. Usually it's higher upfront costs. And I would say generally higher costs year one. Paid ads, high ongoing costs, right? It continues. So if you continue to put your billboard up, you're going to have to pay Google that tax. More competitors jump in, especially with AdWords, because it's very low cost test. A company can come in and test the waters for something like putting up an ad for something locally and spend a couple $100. Doesn't matter to them. Who cares, right? If you have a real SEO campaign for a particular business, that could literally be tens of thousands of dollars over the course of a year or more. That's a huge investment. Trust, usually still SEO is generally thought of as more trustworthy. I would say it's starting to approach 50-50 in part because advertising is just so exhausting on Google. People have kind of stopped paying attention to that. And Google's done a good job over the years, I'd say, of the way their advertising system is set up. It's incentivized accuracy. So it's not like the people clicking, the end users clicking have a worse experience. Oftentimes they have better experience because the person's actually paying. The lifespan SEO is long term with compounding gains. An example of this is a client I've been working with now for about 6 months. We are actively doing an SEO campaign, nationwide and local campaign for them. They're not local, but they are in throughout the state of Florida. And it's taken about 2 months for us to start to see traction on SEO. So literally, we started the SEO stuff beginning in August 1st. So August, September, we're now 10 weeks in total, I guess. We're starting to see major traction for SEO. That's how long kinds of things take. But everything we're doing now, it's just like a snowball. It's going to echo into years to come. Plus, in the case of SEO, which I'll cover in an SEO video, because the way AI works, basically, if you cover SEO, you cover AI. So if somebody asks, one of the tools, ChatGPT or whatever question, the way that those tools are coming up with the answers to those questions is the same, or is pulling from the same data that SEO is coming from. Obviously, with paid ads, it stops when your budget stops. That could be a daily, monthly, yearly basis, but literally, you have the money, your ads get shown, you don't, it ends. SEO does not work that way. Click through, it's still higher in some verticals for SEO. I'd say especially long tail stuff. There's all kinds of cool opportunities with SEO where businesses, it's one of the hardest things I've found to sell and to get clients to understand. But if we've worked long enough with them and done enough of the other side of things, like the publicity and PR and, great website, these kinds of things. And then all of a sudden their website starts ranking well and they start seeing that, oh, wait a second. Because I wrote a blog post 2 years ago, I'm getting 10, clients a month today. Okay, I understand how this works now. It tends to take a while to click. But so there's a lot of opportunities with SEO and click through, and there's all kinds of, I don't know what the stat is today, but I know many years ago the stat used to be that on Google, over 50% of all searches are completely unique. I have a feeling that's probably higher today, especially with AI, because people are using search far differently than they were, just 3 years ago. And then paid ads, obviously, it's immediate but short-lived. So why choose us? Because we care. Because I care. No, I do care. Like, I really only want to work with businesses that are, in it to win, understand what it takes to win, and local businesses. Like I said, I think it's the backbone of any economy, and yeah, I'd love the opportunity to work with anybody, but I'm not here to sell you. So if you want to read that, you can. AdWords Q&A. I'm here to answer any of your questions. Been a certified AdWords professional for over 20 years. Work in AdWords all the time, as frustrating as it can be. My email is zach@olympiamarketing.com. My phone number is 239 through 8 4011. And check us out, olympiamarketing.com. We have lots of articles and information, um, stuff about clients all the time when we launch things for clients. Yeah, so thank you very much for your time. Truly, I appreciate it. There's so little time these days. And if you took the time to watch this, I'm very thankful. Thank you. Take care.